Hello everyone, can you all hear me? Okay. See, my request is simple that this is something that I'm doing from my end, and I'm coming here on daily basis. I could have asked you to rely on recordings, and you can do that also. But please make sure that you attend these sessions until the last day. You will see an increment of 20 to 50 marks in your prelims just because you are coming here spending 90 minutes with me. No one will teach you the way I'm teaching you, and you will realize what I mean when you are done with your examination. Some of you would be observing the same thing on your own. So please make sure that you do not miss even, forget about a day. Do not miss even a second of what I'm teaching here. It's very much aligned with the UPSC preparation. You will see direct questions from what we're discussing. This is the easiest thing I'm requesting all of you to focus on. 90 minutes per day, that's it. We all have our schedule. We'll align that schedule. I exist for one reason and one reason alone, to ensure that you end up seeing your name in that list. I also live and die for that day. That's my North Star. So I trust you that you will all be coming in and you won't miss a single second of what we're discussing. Any questions, thoughts, doubts, anyone up until now? How is it going, your preparation? Okay. After we're done with today's session, I will ask you a question. Which one has been your favorite class? So for the next 90 minutes, think about that also. So let's start today's very interesting class with very interesting activity. I want all of you to close your eyes. I won't be closing my eyes. I'll be seeing whose eyes are closed or not. Hemant, close your eyes. Now I want all of you to take a deep breath for 6 seconds. Hold it. Now breathe out. Otherwise, you will all die. Open your eyes. Now I have a question for Ananya. Can you hear me, Ananya?
Yes, sir.
What did you breathe in?
At first, sir, it occurs to me air, but then since we are in ecology class, so it's a lot more thoughts than just air.
Mhm. What in
Uh,
the air?
so pollutants. Since I'm
Pollutants.
since I'm in Delhi, so yeah, and maybe the air composition that occurs to me.
So what's air
Oxy
composition?
Oxygen,
That's it?
nitrogen, carbon dioxide, other gases.
What are the other gases?
Mm, Argon. So I'm not able to recall.
Okay. I don't do these activities, breathe in, breathe out. But today I had to do it. Or I had to make you do it. So Ananya is right. Oxygen, I agree. Nitrogen, I agree. Some CO2. How many of you are in India right now? Raise your hands. Almost all of you. So oxygen, nitrogen, CO2, this is what our books will tell us. But our country is very special. It is Dhurandhar. All of you inhaled traces of mercury also. Why do I say that? Raise your hands. All of you inhaled traces of mercury. Read through this article and tell me your thoughts. How do you feel? And to all those who joined in late, you will lose like 2 marks in the examination. So please be on time. Every minute of these sessions is extremely, extremely important. If you're attending these sessions, attend it until the last day. And you will see an increment of approximately 50 marks in your prelims, even more in your mains. Read this and tell me your thoughts. Hmm? How does it make you feel? Very interestingly, can you all hear me well, loud and clear? Hmm? Very interestingly, this research, it is conducted by scientists from Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, based in India. Many international organizations, they've also found something similar, even more ghastly. But I am not talking about them. Why? Because in brain dead WhatsApp forwarding zombies, they will term those institutes as anti-India. That's how they think. They think in binaries. We need to have our own research. So this is our research, our own scientists, our own institute. And that's what they're saying. They're telling us that Delhi's air, it contains 6.9 nanograms of mercury per cubic meter. I know none of this makes sense. I'll give you one more data, and then it will make all the sense in the world for you. The global average for Northern Hemisphere is 1.7. In India, it's 6.9. Still not clear. Now understand the difference between 6.9 nanograms of mercury per cubic meter versus 1.7. This one breath, it will not make you collapse. But if you keep on breathing this at 6.9 levels, it will matter a lot because this will poison your brain. It will affect your nervous system. Constant exposure will lead to insomnia, memory loss, headache, motor dysfunction, kidney damage. So, how are you all feeling now? Anyone thanking their stars that they don't live in Delhi? Hmm? Yes, Puneet, where do you live?
Sir, NCR is in Greater Noida.
You live in NCR. I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
How do you
Um,
feel?
Very bad, sir. Previously, I was in Bangalore, so I shifted over there. So,
Hmm. Varsha, what about you?
You can hear me.
Yeah.
I live in Hyderabad.
Oh, that's also not very safe. Arshika?
So I live in a very small town in the Bokaro district of Jharkhand. Like it's nowhere near the city.
You're also not safe. We'll discuss that today. Every morning when you wake up in Delhi, when you open your windows, and some of you also have kids, when you will be sending your kids to school, you're all breathing mercury. But this is still not a problem. Problem is just look at Twitter right now. You will, and there is a trending option on Twitter. What is trending in India today? A useless Bollywood propaganda movie. That's trending. Perhaps mercury in air, it makes you brain dead. Fighting over movie. People are legit writing essays about about a director who made millions through this movie. And you're breathing mercury. I like this, this thing, we all need to understand who is a slave. Worst form of slavery, it is not when the slave knows that he is in chains. The worst form of slavery is when the slave does not even know that he is in chains. Slave has lost the right to clean air. Slave has lost the right to clean water. Slave is losing his right to his sane nervous system. I think there should be a new term in the dictionary. It should be called as brain dead slaves. Why just slaves? Brain dead slaves would be the fans of Dhurandhar 2. You're breathing poison, you're drinking poison. Your children are being born into a world where every element of life, air, water, earth, is poisoned. And what do? We cheer for a hero on a screen that is saving a fictional world. Is this not the definition of slave? No, it's the definition of a brain dead slave. Slaves also should have categorization now. A normal slave and a brain dead slave. Brain dead slave has lost the agency to protect their own lungs. Brain dead slave is someone who is distracted by breads and circus. Bread is what, 80 crore free ration. Circus is in the form of IPL, cricket, Dhurandhar 1, Dhurandhar 2, 3. They don't care about Mercury rising their own blood. Let me show you a very interesting article. I began with the Indian research because to ensure that no one says that it's anti-India, bringing down India's reputation. And this is from UK. Read through it and tell me your thoughts. Thoughts? What do you feel? What do you think? Yes, Anjali?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So the problem I feel is still we are not okay with taking all the toxins and the contaminants out from the core. Rather, we are okay with compensating it. And I think the people are also, frankly speaking, okay with it. Okay, we got a compensation. They are fine with it. But tackling the root cause is still not addressed.
Okay. Just give me a second. Harika, after you.
Sir, it is sad that they are not being held accountable for what they are doing because Unilever even today has so many subsidiary brands in India. Same was the case with Johnson and Johnson when they had toxins mixed in baby products. They're not being held accountable and are easily getting away with everything in India. Unlike
Yeah.
in the West, they're at least being punished, held accountable. The products are being banned. But sadly, it's never the case with India.
In fact, their CEOs are invited to ISB Hyderabad and various business schools. And those CEOs talk about how ethical, how moral their organization is. And how you can also become moral and ethical, like the CEO of HUL and whatnot. This is happening in our lifetime. In 1982, there was a company called, I think, Chesporo or Chespro Ponds. I don't know the correct pronunciation. Anyone knows? I think it's Chespro Ponds. It was operating a mercury thermometer factory in Watertown, New York. It was shut down in New York City. Why? Because US has strong laws. They realized that the existence of this company, it could lead to mercury contamination. They realized that we cannot let this happen to our people because our people are not brain dead slaves. Then they asked, where can we find brain dead slaves? We should shift everything over there. And we all know the answer. They came to India. They looked at our weak regulations. They read through our definition of development. They looked at our corruption, our poverty. Harshika, you have a point to add?
Sir, the statement over there, the compensation was also ex gratia, that is a goodwill
Yeah, I'll
gesture
talk
sort
about
of. They
that.
voluntarily decided it. Yes, so
Yeah.
that was a plan.
Yes, but I'm coming back to that story. 1982, a company, I think just Pro Ponds, shut down in New York City. Now, US is asking where can we put all this? So they came to India. They picked up the entire contaminating factory. And do you know where did they move those mercury barrels? To Kodai Canal. That heavenly place. This is what we are in the eyes of multinational corporations and rest of the world. A few days ago, I think we read about Forever Chemicals, right? In Italy, a chemical factory was shut down because it poisoned 4 lakh people. PFAS chemicals leaked into groundwater for decades. That led to thousands of cancer deaths. Europe banned it. So now the question was, what next? The same PFAS production, it was now shifted to India, to company Ratnagiri. India is not becoming cancer capital of the world by accident. India is not diabetes capital of the world by accident. It is becoming so because we as Indians have become brain dead WhatsApp forwarding zombies. PFAS banned across Europe. These forever chemicals are scientifically linked to testicular cancer, thyroid disease, insulin resistance, hormonal disruption, immune system damage. Our government of India does not even officially recognize these chemicals. Today, these factories, they are discharging polluted water directly into streams. What will happen after that? These streams will feed rivers will feed farms will feed us. Many people ask me, why does government do it? You have to ask, who is in charge of the government? Jaishankarji's son will never live in India, I can guarantee that. Ajit Dovalji's son, UK citizen, watching Dhurandhar from UK. Piyush Goyal's son lives in New York. Modi ji is hardly in India. He only comes during elections. So this Chesborough Ponds, this company, factory, changed hands and it eventually landed under a company called as Hindustan Unilever Limited. Ideally, it should not be called as Hindustan Unilever Limited. It should be called as Terrorist Unilever Limited. Terrorists can't kill at this level. The company has killed us. It's the same company, right, that also promoted that Fair and Lovely, made our women insecure about their own skin. I think they hired the same actress, the wife of the current Dhurandhar director. She was the one, both husband and wife, in charge of telling us who we are. And HUL is not even an Indian company, by the way. It's just Hindustan in name. I think Dhurandhar also took money from Pakistan. I think they bought a couple of songs. So what happened next when HUL became in charge of this? Workers were exposed to toxic mercury vapors. Protective equipments barely existed because our life is cheap. Mercury laced glass thermometers ended up in market, in densely populated part of the market. Free mercury levels, and this is the real data. I know it may sound astounding, but it's real, fact-based. Free mercury levels in atmosphere around that factory was found to be 1,000 times higher than what you will find in normal conditions. 1,000 times. And when they started falling sick, you saw kidney failure, skin diseases, neurological problems, heart ailments. That's when activists discovered this. Those activists were beaten by the police. Those activists were termed as anti-national. But still they worked. At least back in the days, there were activists, not we don't have it anymore. To counter these activists, we know what HUL did. HUL conducted their own studies, funded by their own experts. And they published a report and they said workers are fine. Nothing is happening. And therefore, we need to also understand who is publishing, who's writing articles. If Amitabh Kant is writing article, he's like Dhurandhar 3. Amitabh Kant will write nonsense, justify everything that government is doing. Tomorrow he may write an article suggesting that Strait of Hormuz is controlled by India. And we'll be very happy. So 20 years later, workers filed a case in 2006. Case dragged on for multiple years. In 2016, 15 years after the factory was shut, 34 years after it was set up, Hindustan Unilever finally settled with 591 former workers and their families. They did not even declare the settlement amount because we do not even deserve to know how much an Indian life is worth. We only care about cricket and Dhurandhar. That's the definition of a brain dead civilization. How are you feeling? Anyone? Around 4 to 6 questions could come from what we will discuss today. Thoughts, anyone? Yes, Ashita?
I think so. We have taken the phrase life must go on to another level, and we have become so complacent that today even people dying in front of us is not good enough for us to act up. So we're just fine with people dying as long as they're not dying in our family. And even when somebody's dying in our family, I feel after therapy, everybody's just fine. So
We
we're
had
okay as long
we had
as.
a class in PSI on Hannah Arendt. It reminds me of Hannah Arendt and her philosophy. Let me make you more. Let me tell you more things because there's more to it. When HUL finally agreed to clean up the soil, okay, after all the cases and everything, the cleanup standards that HUL proposed was 20 milligram of mercury per kilogram of soil. I know, makes no sense to you right now, but I'll tell you why this matters. So right now, just hear the number. It's 20 milligram of mercury per kilogram of soil. That's how they will clean it up. Do you know where is HUL headquartered? Yes, Jyoti?
It's in Mumbai.
No, HUL. Sorry, Unilever, the main company.
It's an Anglo-Dutch company, so it's UK or Netherlands.
I think it's UK. They have few things in Netherlands also, some important offices. If I look at the residential standards in UK for mercury per kilogram of soil, it is 1 milligram per kilogram. And today, the same company in India is saying and proposing that we will clean the Indian soil to 20 milligram per kg. That's 20 times dirtier. Some may say, so what, India is usually dirty. But look at the area. It's Kodai Canal, next to Kodai Canal Wildlife Sanctuary, ecologically sensitive area. How does this make you feel now? HUL, Hindustan Unilever. CEOs, chairman said in the meetings of the Prime Minister, they advise the Prime Minister what to do, what not to do. Okay, after hearing this, what would you do? If let's assume that you were in Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, and this is what HUL is saying, what would you do? Yes, Suryansh.
Actually, first, I will first look at the what is our state standards and how it's compared to the global standard, and try to improve our state standards so that we can get all this process or this process, and also future any
No, but
process happen.
you know this, that the 20 versus 1 in UK, 20 times more dirtier. You know this. You've been in this services for some time. You are
Yeah.
in charge of the Pollution Control Board. How will you react to this response by HUL?
Actually, at the end, I have to look at what my standard, my state standards are, or my country standard are. That's how I can work on paper at least. But I will try my best to improve it to the best global
Now,
standard.
basis your standards, Kodai Canal Wildlife Sanctuary, it's ecologically sensitive area.
So yeah, I will go for the minimum possible, like for 1 milligram per kilogram of soil.
No, we will deal with what should be the number later. But at least, and you would do this because you have spine, but at least you would object to what HUL is saying, right? Bare minimum. Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board did not do it. It agreed. Our own regulatory authority, that's the purpose, regulatory authority, approved a cleanup standard that was 20 times weaker than what the polluting company's home country would have demanded. So we have agreed that we are not just a dumping ground. We also want to become a dumping ground. Why is that? Because we do not understand science. We do not even want to understand science. 2 marks question, I leave it in UPSC. Science is extremely important. That's why I want to spend some time discussing science. In 1938, when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, when he was elected as the president of Indian National Congress, he argued that the independence is not just about removing the British flag. Netaji said this time and again, that we have to strive for scientific progress in this country. That's why if you look and read the Constitution of India, you will see these terms. But today, those invoking his name, the clowns in the parliament, they are wasting taxpayers' money in sponsoring unscientific, endless babas. Madhya Pradesh government, it spent almost 4 crores of our money to fund a research on how cow urine could cure cancer. What's shameful is that kids as young as 9, 10, they are being used as props by our leaders. Have you seen those videos of, say, a 7-year-old kid doing pravachan? The image of Sushma Swaraj's daughter with that 10-year-old Abhinav Arora, it should haunt Netaji's call and his soul. He dreamt of a society that might have had some scientific temper. And here we have a member of parliament promoting such babas at scale. And a sitting prime, I think, day before yesterday was the day when Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Sukhdev, they gave their life for our country. When Prime Minister invokes hatred among citizens basis what they eat, it should haunt the souls of Bhagat Singh ji. Was this the India he dreamt of? So let's come back to science. You need to understand the value of science. And the questions will come from what we discussed today in prelims and mains. And you can use quite a few topics that we may discuss in even in ethics. My question is, what is mercury? Why am I talking about mercury? I want all of you to understand what mercury is. I want you to fall in love with this. Not because it's safe or dangerous or friendly or unfriendly. It is extraordinary. Understanding something deeply, it is the first step to dealing with it seriously. Yeah, Ankit?
So, like, I'm from science background. Like, I am doing my graduation in physics. So basically, like, mercury is not just any simple compound. Like, if we see, look at the microplastics, they are causing cryogenics. They are causing cancer. But when like the radioactive substances, mercury and lead, when they come into picture, they start modifying the genes. They start like uh, playing with your brain neural networks. So like they are very dangerous. And one more thing, like I just wanted to add was like in these days I am doing something, like I am working on this thing. So like we have this tendency that since the air is polluted, so let's, like, at least the rich ones, they have this tendency, let's shift to the air purifiers. But the fact is that the air purifiers that we are using in our country, they are just physical filters, and they can filter these ppf, like dust particles and all those type of things. This mercury, lead, carbon monoxide, they can't be filtered. They just go in, they come straight out. So one more problem that comes into the picture is that there are special type of techniques to like make uh, air purifiers to tackle these kind of problems. But since in the western world, they started those research, but they don't have those kind of problems, so they didn't like move forward with doing with developing those kind of air purifiers. And in our case, we are having those problems, but we just don't know that these are not what kind of air purifiers we need for our country. That's the problem.
Many years ago, these ancient Greeks, they used to call mercury as liquid silver. Why? Such a perfect name. Why call it a liquid silver? Yeah, Jyoti.
So basically, it's a metal which is liquid at a room temperature and it's very shiny. Henceforth, they used to call it as shiny silver.
Has anyone ever touched a mercury thermometer? Thank God. Not advisable. But if you were to touch it, it will run away from your fingers. Mercury looks like metal. It flows like water. It shines like silver. And that's why I think perhaps humans have been fascinated by mercury for thousands of years. At room temperature, most metals are solid. Iron is solid, right? Copper is also solid. Aluminium, solid. But mercury is a metal that remains liquid at ordinary temperatures. People use this in thermometers, barometers, switches. lab instruments because of this property of mercury. Now, what's the reason as civil servants, why are we spending time learning about mercury or heavy metals? Some say, we need to study chemistry. I don't think we should study chemistry to that level. We need to study and see how chemistry meets the environment, how it meets the health, how it meets governance, how it meets public policy, how it meets disaster management. That is why, with that outlook, with that perspective, we have to study these two subjects, science and tech and environment. Our idea is not to become expert at everything. Our goal should be to learn better. Tomorrow, when you are secretary in whatever ministry that you are in, should not take you a lot of time to comprehend what's happening. Become a good learner. Yes, Ananya?
Yes, so mercury, like other metals, also accumulates in the environment with and further leads to biomagnification.
That changed the question, but okay. So mercury can be understood in three forms. First is this elemental mercury, the shiny liquid form we usually imagine when we hear this term mercury. Historically used in thermometers, some industrial processes. When you spill it, it looks harmless, but that's the trap. Why? Because it can slowly evaporate and release something called as mercury vapor. Second is the inorganic mercury compounds. No need to take notes. I'm just talking about various stages to it. This is when mercury, when it combines with elements like chlorine, sulfur, oxygen, forms inorganic compounds. You'll find this in industrial waste. And then we have organic mercury compounds. This one is very interesting. Methyl mercury. This is one name I want you to remember. Methyl mercury, this is the villain of the story. When Ananya was talking about biomagnification, it's methyl mercury. Organic mercury compounds. And methyl mercury, the thing with methyl mercury is that it enters living organisms very easily. It moves through food chains. It accumulates in fish. It enters human body. And once it enters human body, it can cross barriers that not many toxins can cross. It can cross the blood-brain barrier. It can cross the placenta. What does that mean? If methyl mercury crosses placenta. Sneha?
It could be transferred from mother to child.
Yeah, it becomes intergenerational issue then. It means an unborn child can be exposed through the mother. This is why mercury is not just environmental issue, it's intergenerational issue. How does it enter human body? Number one, it's through inhalation that we all did in the morning when we began the class. If elemental mercury is spilled or released in a factory, it can evaporate. Then people breathe the vapor. Second is ingestion. Mercury can settle into water bodies. Microorganisms convert into methyl mercury, and then biomagnification and all that happens. Bioaccumulation. Mercury is primarily known to damage the nervous system and damage kidneys. Why kidneys? How can mercury damage kidneys? Yes, Priyal?
Sir, it decreases the GFR rate, that is the globular molecular filtration rate. So every cell membrane that is present in the kidney, it can't filter mercury as
Yeah, let's keep it simple. The kidneys are filtering organs. Filtering. That's what they do. They filter. They're constantly processing what enters the bloodstreams. Toxic metals burden them heavily. Children are especially vulnerable because the nervous system is still developing. Pregnant women, they're also a critical risk group because exposure can affect fetal brain development. Intergenerational issue. Take a glass of water today, it will feel light to you. Now imagine picking up the same volume of mercury. It would feel like you're lifting a very heavy rock. Why is that? Same volume of water versus same volume of mercury. Yes, Ankit?
Sir, Mercury is much denser, that's why. Density of Mercury is the reason.
Yeah, it is denser than steel at room temperature, almost twice of that of steel. What about gold, Ankit?
Sir, I can't compare gold to Mercury, but both are metals and they are like they'll be if liquid gold is there, it
Which is
will be
more
heavier
dense,
than water.
gold or
So,
mercury?
so I can make a conjecture that I guess that it's a tricky question. Then I'll go with Mercury.
No, gold is more denser than mercury. Gold is, I think, the densest of all common precious metals. Mercury is denser than the every metal that you encounter in daily life, but lighter than gold. Let's look at this question. I think you all can answer this. Yes, Chip. But do you know what's the most horrifying thing about mercury? That mercury evaporates. It can evaporate at room temperature. It does not evaporate the way water does. But if you leave a drop of mercury on a table in a closed room, within hours, you will see that the air in that room, it contains detectable mercury vapor. This is still not horrifying. The most horrifying bit would be that mercury vapor, you can't see it, invisible. It's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless. So when you walk into a room where mercury has been spilled, how can that happen? I think CFL lamps that we use. It has been shattered. Do you know what is CFL? Have you heard of CFL? What is CFL? Yes, Shwetaksh?
Compact fluorescent lamps.
Tell us more about that. What is it?
They were basically made to replace the common tungsten filament lamps. They were more energy efficient and had more lumens due to the fluorescent coating and mercury inside
How many
them.
of you grew up in those households with long white tubes, tube lights? Hmm. That hums also. Almost all of you. It's everywhere in India. You can go to government offices, schools, hospitals, shops, factories, everywhere. What's inside of it? Every fluorescent lamp, every tube light, every CFL, it contains mercury. Who will tell me how does a fluorescent lamp works? Sandra?
So there is mercury vapor inside the lamp and it's coated with phosphorus. And when electricity passes, the mercury vapor reacts with the phosphorus, and phosphorus is a light emitting substance, and visible light is produced.
So what's the need to have phosphorus?
Because it emits light.
Okay. Mercury does not do that. Mercury vapors.
Mercury vapors, no, sir. I think it's colorless and odorless. So.
Okay. See, so inside the glass, inside that sealed glass tube, there is a small amount of mercury vapor along with an inert gas, usually argon. At each end of the tube, there is electrode. So when you switch on the lamp, then the electric current heats these filaments. A lot of chemistry takes place, and then photon is released. Packet of light energy is released. But the crucial part is that the light Mercury emits when excited is ultraviolet, UV radiation, which is invisible to us, to human eye. And that is why we have phosphorus powder also. So when UV photons hit the phosphorus coating, the phosphorus absorbs the UV and re-emits it as visible light. That's the white glow that you see. So different phosphorus mixtures give different color temperatures. So it looks like mercury is also the engine of light. Without mercury, no UV. Without UV, no phosphorus excitation. Without phosphorus excitation, no visible light. So lamp cannot function without mercury in that case. What's the difference between tube light and CFL? CFL is compact fluorescent lamp, no? So the tube light that you see versus CFL, what's the difference? Yes, Oyansh?
I mean, it's more or less, I think the principles is the same. It's just a little bit of difference in terms of how they are arranged and
look at the full form. Go back to the full form of CFL. Compact fluorescent lamp. The difference is only physical, not chemical. Much more compact. CFL is simply a fluorescent tube that has been bent or coiled to fit into certain kinds of bulb sockets. The physics, the mercury, the phosphor, all the things remain the same. So CFL was never a revolution in lamp technology. LED could be a revolution. Why? Do you know what is LED? CFL and LED are different. Yes, Pitan?
So LED is light emitting diode, so it uses a diode, an electrodiode, that when one end is the cathode and other end is the diode emits diode emits photons essentially.
And there is no mercury in LED.
No.
That's very interesting. Ananya?
Yeah, it's a semiconductor device. It uses, I think, material like silicon compounds, and energy gets it basically emits as light.
Yeah. So there is no mercury, by the way, in LED. It's very powerful. No UV radiation, no high voltage ionization. It's a simple, elegant, solid state device. So can you think of advantages of using LED over CFL? What could be the advantages? Should we move towards LED? If yes, then why yes? If no, then why not? Yes, Madhurip?
Sir, at least they're not in LED. We are not using mercury, so it's much more safer to use when compared to CFL or tube lights. That would be a really good reason why we should shift to LEDs.
Okay, any other reason? Tanmay?
Another reason that I can think of, sir, is energy efficiency, as LEDs require less energy to
Yeah,
generate.
LED lamp uses approximately 50% less energy than CFL. For a country like India, that's a very interesting thing. What else? And yes, no mercury, that's another advantage. One more thing for Indian consumers is that the lifespan of LEDs is much, much more than CFL. So ideally, we should all be using LED, not CFL and tube lights. So if you were a civil servant advising the Prime Minister, what would you advise Prime Minister? You're concerned about this problem. What would you do? You're seeing mercury vapors. You understand the problems with mercury. You've traveled to Australia, you've traveled to US, and you realize those countries are doing something much better. So what would you advise the Prime Minister? Yes, Vaishnavi?
Firstly, I will say to implement stricter regulations, and then we'll promote LED lights for household purposes and other uses
How would you do that?
by running various awareness program.
Okay.
But
So makes sense. So this is what some of the civil servants did. Anything else that you would do? Vipul?
So providing it at subsidized rate.
Okay. Okay, you're creating incentives to ensure that people switch to LEDs versus CFL. What else? Yes, Ruchir?
Sir, maybe impose taxes
Again, you're
on the
giving more incentives
CFLs.
to use. Okay, you're ensuring more incentives to ensure people use LED. But this is not the answer I'm looking at. This is like what current civil servants are doing. They can only think in a couple of steps. Back in the days, they cleared the examination because there was no MisFits. Now MisFitters will compete with them. This is what they advised, no? Have you all heard of that Ojala scheme? Unnat Jyoti, what? Unnat Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all. It was launched in 2015. By January 2025, more than 36 crore LED bulbs had been distributed through Ojala. That scheme saved millions of kilowatt of our energy per year. CO2 reductions happened. Over time, India and China became the world leaders in LED adoption. Market share exceeding 75%. But come on, this is Modi ji. How can everything be right? Any problem because of Ojala? Hmm? Can you think of any problem? You all gave that advice to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister took that advice. Let's incentivize usage of LED. And we saw the benefits. It's because of people like you, you advised Prime Minister to do demonetization. You should have advised him to focus more on border security. What did he forget? Yes, Ronika?
The recycling of LEDs is even more expensive and even more difficult because they have
Recycling of LED or CFL?
LED. CFL is typical, but we switched to LED.
Okay, we switch to LED, then what happens to CFL?
Yeah, recycling of that is also difficult. So
That is the first thing, no? You're removing CFL from your house. You don't recycle that first. So what happens to that? Ojala was brilliantly designed from incentive standpoint. But what happens when CFL and tube lights come out of the house? Every CFL contains 3 to 5 milligrams of mercury. Every single one. Ojala replaced CFLs with LEDs. More than 1 lakh fluorescent lamps were discarded every single day in India. Every single day. How many percentage went to the authorized recycling facilities? Minuscule. More than 90%, and that's just government data. Government data is always questionable, but still let's agree with that. Basis that 90%, more than 90%, it remained. It was being crushed in the back alleys. It was being picked up by rack pickers. And because of that, what happened? It released mercury vapors directly into the air at scale. And we're breathing that. An organization did the mathematics. It petitioned the government. It realized that around 500,000 milligrams of mercury was being added in the Indian environment every single day just by discarding fluorescent lamps every single day. The entire country of India, it has 41 treatment, storage and disposal facilities for hazardous wastes. Only 41. That's it. We do not have infrastructure. There's no collection mechanism, no consumer awareness. Looks like from Mercury's standpoint, it backfired. We released that at scale in our environment. This scheme, it created a mercury disposal crisis that nobody was tracking and nobody talked about it. And nobody will. Why would they? That is why civil servant, you should think beyond the first order. No one told me what happens to the CFL. How will you discard them? How will you recycle them? Compare this to what happens in other countries. In US also there was a plan, a program called as Planet Air. Basis that people had to mail the CFL to or there were retail drop-off points at Home Depot. That's what they had to do. Recycling is such an important feature. In Germany, similar thing happened. In Australia, similar thing happened. But here in India, we brought a law on paper, made that an election campaign, spent 3,000 crores of our tax money with Modi's photo everywhere. 100,000 lamps being discarded every day. We forgot to think about the recycling part. Let's look at this. How does it make you feel, by the way? Any thoughts? Yes, Priyal?
Sir, it should have gone to the biomedical hazardous waste, as you know how the hospitals are sent. So it should have been at least some segregation at some level. That's what I think was lacking, and that's why it
It's
was
like Yogi announcing what AI deal with that company. The company has barely any revenue. Yes, Payodi?
Sir, I got remembered of what Weber sir was discussing that day, that everything starts at the block level and then it goes to the government level. So when the policies are made at the government level, they don't discuss at the block level that whatever issues might be, and then policies are made from up to down, and these kind of problems then arrive.
Even if we discuss at block level, I mean, do you really think we have smart civil servants anymore? Of course, there are exceptions, some really remarkable civil servants. But look at the way they've been behaving in foreign services. I mean, I know the details, how things are working out. Yes, Suryansh?
Actually, I wanted to ask about the question that you asked about the who was more weight, gold or mercury. But if you look at the atomic mass, mercury has more atomic mass compared to gold. So technically, mercury is heavier than the gold.
Okay, good. Let's come back to this question that I may want to discuss right now. Yeah. Shushma?
Sir, answer 1 and 3 are correct.
Okay, good. Mute
To
yourself.
produce amount.
So 1 and 3. So second one is wrong. CFL. Okay, second is wrong. So whatever you second is wrong. Okay, so we have 1 and 3. I won't even read 1. I've read 3 now. Yeah, makes sense. Let's look at this question. We discussed this today. If you were to rewatch the recording, you would get to the answer. Essentially.
So the answer would be second. Indiscriminate disposal of used fluorescence electric lamp causes mercury pollution in the environment. And why is mercury used? I guess option 2, when the lamp is switched on, the mercury in the lamp causes the emission of UV rays.
Yeah.
Which then falls on phosphorus and then the light is emitted.
Yeah, makes sense. So before I talk more about what's happening in India right now, I think, of course, I did that already. I want you to understand and see what happens when society, it ignores mercury contamination until it is too late. Because we are ignoring mercury contamination today in India. Have you heard anyone speaking about what happened with Ojala scheme? How it led to rising mercury levels in India? We're ignoring it. And that's why we're breathing mercury. And that's why HUL can say this blatantly. 20 times more levels you will find in India. Let's read this. Let's look at this.
In 1908, a chemical factory opened in the coastal village of Minamata, Japan. The factory, ran by Chiso Corporation, began to rapidly expand and create new products for the next half-century. But little did the residents of Minamata know, the actions and negligence of this factory would lead to the largest mercury pollution disaster in history, changing the fate of the world forever. It wasn't until the 1950s that residents began to notice several afflictions. It began with numbness, muscle weakness, and loss of coordination, but quickly progressed to intense neurological disorders and regular birth defects. As cases began to pop up more and more frequently, an early epidemiological study announced that an epidemic of an unknown disease of the central nervous system was spreading around the village. No one knew the cause of what was happening, but clearly there was one, and the city invited researchers from Kumamoto University to help investigate. The researchers' first discovery was strange. There had been several instances of local cats displaying erratic behaviors and having neurological issues. The locals had been referring to it as the dancing cat disease. They then found that crows had been falling out of the sky, fish floated dead in the bay, and seaweed no longer grew on the seabed. Whatever this disease was, it was affecting the biology of all the local organisms, and showing signs of environmental damaging. As research continued, it was noted that victims of the Minamata disease often ate higher quantities of fish and shellfish from the bay. They eventually identified that it was mercury causing the disease, a heavy metal that was transferring from seafood to the people that ate it. When they analyzed local waters, they found large quantities of mercury in the fish, seaweed,
And we all understand because we have had classes on biomagnification, bioaccumulation.
and everywhere else, where the concentration was highest, right around the wastewater canal.
And I think you should also know what kind of fish, if you eat fish, what kind of fish you should ideally eat. We discussed that also. Small ones, the large ones, predator ones or not.
Of the Chiso factory. In an attempt to deflect the ensuing scrutiny, Chiso Corp redirected its waste to the Shiranui Sea, where the disease began to spread to other fishing villages along the coast. The Chiso factory
Are you seeing this? This is how corporations behave. And that is why we need to ensure that certain sectors, they remain under the control of the government. You should not privatize them. Nuclear, for example. Should not privatize it at scale. There should be some checks and balances at critical sectors. Our ports, airports are critical. Now we can be held hostage anytime by any corporation.
refused to cooperate with the Kumamoto research team, withholding information about their industrial processes and funding research of their own into alternative causes of the Minamata disease. But as this began to affect the previously fruitful fishing business of the village, the Minamata Fishing Cooperative protested and demanded accreditation from Chiso Corp. After an intense back and forth, the factory agreed, stating that they would swallow their tears and accept, paying the fishers 20 million yen. News of this caused other affected villages to begin seeking compensation as well, with several fishing alliances heading to the factory to demand it. Chiso was eventually forced to give several collectives accreditation of their own, and was ordered by the Ministry of International Trade and Industry to install new wastewater treatments at the factory. They installed a cyclator purification system, but in the following years, the installed treatment showed no signs of lowering the level of mercury being released, and the disease continued to spread. Meanwhile, in the village, Minamata patients became victims of discrimination and ostracization. The disease was at first suspected to be contagious, causing patients to be isolated and have their homes disinfected. Yet even when contagion was disproven, a strong stigma began to surround the victims of the disease. This led to the formation of the Minamata Disease Patients Families Mutual Aid Society, who began a sit-in at the factory, eventually earning accreditation of their own, 100,000 yen per year for adults, 30,000 yen per child, and a one-time payment of 320,000 yen for families of dead patients. Unfortunately, receiving this compensation caused even more of a rift between the patients and the rest of the Minamata villagers, and many even avoided seeking accreditation to hide their symptoms. As the decades went on, people slowly began to be more receptive to the struggles of Minamata victims. Eventually, the Citizens Council for Minamata Disease Countermeasures was established, a support group for those with the disease to deal with the social stigma around them. The Minamata disease continued to impact the various groups involved in the whole whole ordeal. From the patients and their families who were faced with both debilitation and discrimination for years before they were given any care or sympathy, to the fishermen who had their way of living damaged and continued to seek and protest accreditation, unable to safely fish again until 1977, to the local and national governments that could have responded to the situation sooner and began to rework their policies to better equip themselves on identifying and intervening on potential pollution hazards, to Chiso Corporation itself that held back on responsibility until the cause was too clear to be avoided. They would have to pay much more in accreditation and defamation in the following years, especially when it was revealed that they knew their cyclator purification system would be completely ineffective all along, leading to a criminal case against the company in 1975. But even with all these different perspectives that had their own motivations and philosophies about the situation, I think they could at least agree on one thing. With thousands infected and hundreds dead, the Minamata mercury pollution was a clear human disaster that did not need to reach the level of severity that it did. Which brings us to today. With years to reflect and critically analyze the situation, it's clear that it left quite the historical significance. For one, Minamata now has a disease named after it, but the whole ordeal also caused Japan to set safe regulatory standards for mercury and methylmercury levels in fish and shellfish, and instituted cleanup efforts in the Minamata Bay. The events during the height of the Minamata disaster informed how Japan would act during the next pollution disaster a few years later, and two more of them later on. As the first of these four big pollution diseases of Japan, the Minamata disaster caused a shift in views, garnering support for the prevention of pollution and sympathy to the victims of it. It raised awareness internationally as well, with the United Nations providing guidance on mercury pollution and its impacts to other countries, who would use the incident to inform their own decisions and regulations regarding potential pollutants. It took the village decades to get over the disaster, but some may say that they never truly have. The consequences not only affected those who were directly in contact with the poisoned food, but also the children who were born with defects and disabilities. So the Minamata disease still impacts people living today. The latest count showed 2,282 people recognized as having the disease, and thousands more are likely living with it unrecognized. And to this day, whether or not Chiso Corp or the government gave enough support for these victims is a sore subject. As a world, we learn valuable lessons from disasters like these, and they should be implemented to prevent situations like this happening in the future, or at least to better respond to them. Here are three that we can draw from the Minamata mercury poisoning. First is to pay attention. Safety should always be at the forefront of thought, especially when dealing with chemical productions. The Minamata disease could have possibly been prevented if people acted upon the noticeable signs that something was wrong earlier. I mean, people knew that the local wildlife had been acting strangely, with the dancing cats and all. But also when the early epidemiological study was conducted and the disease was discovered, it took a while for people to pay it any mind, since the etiological agent of the disease was yet to be identified. If people were more vigilant to these warning signs, they could have began countermeasures much earlier, and the damages to humans, animals, and the ecosystem would have been much smaller. The second lesson is that negligence can lead to disaster. When Chiso Corp first opened their factory over a century ago, they knew about their wastewater products but didn't say anything about it. The downstream effects of this clearly weren't taken into account, and when dumping mercury turned into the Minamata disease, it was already too late. Economic growth was prioritized by the company and its supporters so much that they denied responsibility at first. This level of negligence to health risks cannot be something that companies engage in if we want to prevent things like this from happening in the future. Additionally, there was some neglect from the government as well. When the Kumamoto researchers
Okay, there are a few things he did not mention. I'll talk about that. Thoughts, anyone? What did we see? Yes, Sanket?
So the very first question that we asked while starting these classes was like, why should we study environment and ecology? So the best answer could be like, in this case, this dancing cat symptom was very much like these smaller organisms. They usually show these type of symptoms very early. So if someone could have detected that the environment and ecology is behaving in a different manner, then this thing could have had been prevented. Same thing goes in the case of ecosystems when certain vulnerable animals start going extinct. That shows the health of the forest or that ecosystem. That is something.
Yeah. Adityan?
So from this video, I find that as a person who studies environment, it is key for them to know when something happens to a certain species, it is not just confined with that organism alone. However, it may indicate a large environmental changes happening around us. It may be a key indicator for us.
By the way, in 1979, the CISO's executives were finally sentenced to prison. 2 years. For killing thousands of people over decades. That was the prison sentence. 2 years. Now, I want you to just have this story in your mind. The visuals of what you just saw. Dancing cat, that 5-year-old girl who could not walk, so on and so forth, people eating poisonous fish in good faith. They didn't realize that it was mercury-laced fish. I want you to have those visuals in your mind right now. Okay? Hold that image. And now I want you to look at India in 2025, 2026. I want you to honestly tell me, are we different from what happened in 1950s Minamata? Yes, Sanma?
So the moment you asked, what did we just see? The first thought that popped up in my head was we saw the future. If we don't pay attention right now, we saw the future.
Are you sure
That's
it's the future or it's the present that we're living?
it could very well be the present because we are so overshadowed by all the other unnecessary information that of movies and of film stars, of politicians uh, being congratulated or not being able to attend some function that they could have attended on some certain islands. Uh, we are not able to see it, but yeah, if it's either present or the future, but it's coming, it's right here.
The problem with mainstream media is it only covers mainstream. It doesn't talk about what's happening in Singrauli or what's happening in Odisha. That IITM Pune study that we began our class with, Delhi's mercury levels today 4 times higher than the global average. That study, if you read that study, you would realize 72 to 92% of this mercury comes from human activities. What are those human activities? Coal, number one. Look at the share of coal in India's energy basket versus look at any of these developed countries. You will feel ashamed what's happening. Coal contains mercury. It occurs in coal deposits. When you burn coal at high temperatures, mercury in the coal, it vaporizes. It goes up the chimney stacks right into the air. Adani ji is burning coal. When I was in petroleum and natural gas ministry, I worked my heart out to ensure that we move away from coal. At that time, we were focused on increasing share of our natural gas. Like, it was a good replacement to coal. We made progress also, but now nothing is happening in that space. All talks. We have that petroleum minister doing those press conferences, saying it was unfortunate. Unfortunately, he could not attend parties in Epstein Island. In 2019, thermal power plants alone emitted approximately 186 tons of mercury per year. 186 tons. That's the air we breathe. Go to Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. Odisha alone accounts for roughly 57 tons per year, about 12% of country's total mercury emissions. Madhya Pradesh contributes 53 tons. Chhattisgarh 50 tons. Think about what it means for the people who live in those states. Why don't you see these conditions happening in rich countries? You don't see this in Zurich. You will not see this in Davos. You will not see this in New York City. But you see this in parts of India. Poor people, we pay twice. And yes, cricket can make us happy and Dhurandhar can make us happy. Two things that we live and die for. In Talcher, around the NTPC plant, local communities have been complaining for decades about fly ash, contaminated water, respiratory diseases. No one is measuring mercury systematically. Poorest of the poor, they have no voice, no lawyers. And now I think because of Geo's internet penetration, no brain also. Singrauli, you have NTPC Vidyanchal complex. They have suppressed studies. It was found that elevated mercury levels are found in blood, in urine, hair, breast milk. Breast milk from women living near these plants in Singrauli. Think about the children who are born. What has India done about mercury emissions? India ratified this Minamata Convention, by the way. It did that in 2018, legally bound by it. This convention targets coal-fired power plants as a priority source because they understand, that's the main source for mercury being released in the atmosphere. Indian government issued new emission standards for thermal power plants in 2015. But do you know what happened after that? They issued new standards. There was something called as FGD units. Anyone heard of it? What is it? FGD? Yes, someone?
So it is fuel gas desulfurization, like they capture the harmful gases like sulfur.
Yeah, FGD units. So flue gas desulfurization units. So basis the convention that we signed, we were supposed to install FGD units in all thermal power plants. Why? Because this technology can capture oxidized mercury from flue gases. Did that happen? No. We kept on increasing our deadline. 2015 to 2022. Now it's, I think, 2026, 31st December. And I can guarantee it will get extended again till 2047. Because these companies also provide funds to political parties. They want to minimize on their costs. Every time you read a headline of MOUs being signed or whatever being signed, or when government approves a new thermal power plant, please understand today in 21st century, India is choosing mercury over clean air or clean energy. So what are the sources of this pollution? One is, of course, coal. Second is something called as artisanal gold mining. And this is one source of mercury pollution that most Indians have absolutely no idea about. In Jharkhand, in Karnataka, that gold fields that we have in Karnataka, in Rajasthan, in Chhattisgarh, in Maharashtra, there is artisanal and small scale gold mining happening. It's informal, it's unregistered, it's illegal, absolutely unregulated. These miners, they use mercury to extract gold. They mix mercury with crushed gold ore. Mercury is special because it glues itself to gold particles. You get a lump of mercury gold amalgam, then you heat it, mercury evaporates as mercury vapor. What is left is gold. And this process is not unique to India. This happens in many parts of poor economies. In Ghana, in Indonesia, in Philippines, in Myanmar, this happens. But here in India also, it's happening at scale. So eventually what left is mercury vapor. And then, of course, we have industrial sector and waste. The non-ferrous metal production, copper smelting, lead processing, zinc production emits around 88 tons of mercury per year in India. Captive power plant, 65 tons. Cement production, iron, steel plants, waste incineration, all sources of mercury. I was listening to one of the investors in India. He used to run a pump and dump scheme 20 years ago. Today he's acting like a, what do you call, value investor. He was saying that that he is very bullish about the cement industry in India. The first thing that struck me was, okay, now our air would be much more poisonous. Mercury. Of course, people will make money. He's building a case that it's good for the economy, it's good for the country. That is how you show development. And cement production rises, you see that infrastructure builds up. That's how you show growth in the economy. What kind of growth if you have this dancing cat syndrome in life? Bedridden all the time. Today, mercury, arsenic, chromium, nickel, all of that is flowing into the Damodar river system in Jharkhand, in West Bengal. Tisco in Jamshedpur. I'm very scared of living near any industrial towns. People residing near integrated iron and steel plants in India, they have been found to have blood mercury concentrations 30 times higher than those in other controlled regions. 30 times, not 30%, 30 times. And they did not do anything to deserve this. Of course, Tata and these companies will fund a few studies of their own, fund a few professors of their own. They already own some institutes and will brainwash into believing that they're doing remarkable work. Let's look at some questions. Yes, Roshan.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes. Consider the following statements regarding mercury pollution. First, gold mining activity is a source of mercury pollution in the world. That's correct. Coal-based thermal power plants cause mercury pollution. That is also correct.
Also,
And
please
third,
have a habit for your prelims that as in when you read through one of these statements, keep on eliminating the options. Put a
Yes,
big
sir.
cross. I don't want you
Yes.
to have a scenario where you come up with the right answer, but you fill in the wrong one.
Yes, sir.
So you will
Fourth
say that
option
if the
is
first one is
eliminated.
correct, then I will remove the fourth one. Yeah.
Yes. So And third point is there is no known safe level of exposure to mercury. It may be true, sir. No, it may be true. So option could be option 2 or 3.
Okay. It is not true. There is no. It is true, I think. Yeah. There is no known safe level of exposure to mercury. It's not safe for us. So the answer would be 3. All 3 are correct. Let's look at this question. Yes, Clara?
Sure. Minamata disease was caused by eating fish which have high levels of mercury.
Yeah. Let's look at this question. Puneet?
Minamata tragedy occurred by the following eating ground the Minamata by way of sir, it is the fourth.
Yeah, good. Methyl mercury. So how are you feeling after today's class? Up until now, which one has been your favorite class and why? In this series of Age of Disasters. Yeah, Roger?
Sir, this one 100%, and I'll give you the reason for that. Earlier, when there was this one class where you taught us about, where you introduced us with the ecological hat concept. So I was very astounded by that, if I start wearing that hat every time I think about different scenarios, be it political, be it society, be it economics, be it whatever, I'll develop more insights and I'll probably make better decisions as an individual and as a member of society as well, because my decisions will also impact the society. That aside, I think today's class was a game changer, at least for me. And the sole reason for that is that I have understood what is the reason for an informed individual and an individual who needs to step out of their daily pleasures and their daily activities and really fight for their own rights and fight for their well-being. I think this class really made me realize that to the core, because so I have this, and the primary reason for that is that I am a long distance runner, so I kind of understand why having clean air and all these resources which are not contaminating your body is very important. So I think for me it was a very personal experience while being a part of this class, and that is the reason why I didn't really speak today, except this time.
The class is not over yet. I think it will extend for next 15 minutes. But you could also have recency effect. Now, what about the Epstein as a virus, not a bacteria class? Or the biomagnification class that we had? Yes, someone? After you?
Sir, no doubt today is the favorite class of mine because I have known this mercury levels, but I have not thought it as a mercury vapor and pollution, and how people are negligent about this, and also like how developed countries often manipulate underdeveloping countries in this aspect.
Yeah. Yashata? Someone please tell me, not this, any other class.
For me, yesterday's class was my favorite because I was expecting the ecological hat ideology and other perspectives. Because in the previous classes, also, you have put forward a dynamic view of the subjects we have taken up. But yesterday, after the class about farmers of fungus, you gave us the homework to read about it. I couldn't wait for the class to get over. And as soon as the class got over, I was reading about it and I realized that this subject that I always ran away from because I found it really boring is something I want to really, really focus and invest my time in. So that's when I noticed the difference. So yesterday's class would be my favorite.
Interesting. Aruna, I think you were also raising your hand.
Yes, sir, definitely. I think if I need to like put everything in crux, all these classes since the very first class, I feel all these big names that we see, be it diseases, be it disasters, as we call it, I think they all arise from the very entrenched daily lifestyle that we as humans follow. The root cause remains still very like at a very micro level if we consider that. So apart from being blinded by these, not being blinded by these big names, but rather than being overwhelmed by these, we should first look inwards and see it, as we talked about, the block level systemic thinking. I think that is something that I like, that's the crux that I derive from these classes, that look inwards and look at the very base level, look at the fundamentals first. So yeah, but yeah, today's class was again amazing, mind blowing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Anjali?
Sir, I was especially intrigued by the class related to the phytoplanktons and zooplanktons, sir. Why? Because I was aware scientifically what they do and how they play a special role in all of the marine life and everything. But when I thought of it like as a mother of a toddler, definitely those microplastics going into them. And at the end of the day, I was always happy ki fine. Somehow the plastics are being eaten by them and they'll die, decompose, and it'll go away. But no, that's not exactly. I have lived my life to a certain point. What about the next generation? They are going to catch up everything and all of it, and especially those zooplanktons. And it was an eye opener, sir. So that was my favorite class.
It's very important. And I hope and in time to come that this becomes your favorite subject, environment, science, and technology. It's hard for me because all the subjects are so marvelous subjects. I mean, history, economy, geography. I love politics, international relations. But this is something that is important for 1.4 billion people of India. Billions of people, if they're exposed to elevated mercury levels through air, water, food, what does it mean for our cognitive development? What does it mean for the IQ scores of children born near coal plants in Odisha? Learning capacity of children in Singrauli? What is the mistake of those kids? Their mothers were exposed to the elevated mercury levels. We talk endlessly and shamelessly about India's demographic dividend. What demographic dividend? Today, our foreign policy is around labor migration agreements. That's the demography. That's what we are doing with it. How can you drive economic growth with such population if the demography is cognitively impaired? None of your Dhurandhar stars will be exposed to mercury levels to this level. Early childhood exposure to methyl mercury. So dangerous. Coal plant communities in Odisha, tribal gold miners in Jharkhand. Government knows this, by the way. Regulators also know this. Scientists know this. They're publishing studies about it. IITM Pune scientists published that a Delhi mercury level study. NDTV reported it. CPCB knows about mercury emissions from thermal power plants. They know this. Ministry of Environment knows about Minamata Convention. India signed it. But I'll tell you what's happening. Politicians and bureaucrats, they are in the pocket of coal companies and industrialists. FGD deadline is a proof. FGD deadline extension is not happening by accident. It is happening because power industry lobby. It is lobbying against the additional capital cost. Elections are expensive. Coal companies donate to political parties. So what can be done? We cannot abandon coal overnight, but we need to think about coal. Bare minimum, install FGD. And those who are not installing it, fine them heavily. Persistent non-compliance should result in shutdown. There should be mercury monitoring in rivers, in fish. Real-time monitoring is possible. European Union, it has mercury limits for fish sold commercially. Do you know that? US FDA has mercury advisories for fish consumption. India has nothing comparable. We do not publish data, we do not even gather data. Third, we need to hold accountable what happened with Ojala. What's the disposal standard? How are they disposed? What are the collection points? When we come up with a scheme, it should be holistic. How can we not think about the disposal of mercury-lead CFL? And yeah, more people should become part of MisFits, so they become aware of what is happening. We can demand, we can become better civil servants, we can hold all leaders accountable, have better debates in the society, only when we are ourselves aware what's important, what's not important. Mercury is not a niche scientific concern. It's a public health emergency. It is slowly and steadily dismantling the neurological health of millions of Indians. And we're oblivious to it. We have no clue. So with this, we wrap up today's session. Hope you had a wonderful day. We'll meet tomorrow. And please ensure that before 1st April, you are wrapping up with your core subjects. Watch the recordings. After 1st April, you have to ensure that you are completing the papers. 35 papers on daily basis. 3 times. And I will see your name in the list this year. Okay, good luck. And please get back to studies now.